Hello everyone, my name is Gimazak and welcome back to part 2 of the launch Q&A for Ara History Untold. In this video we're picking right where we left off with Xbox Game Studios executive producer Matt Turnbull, answering even more of your burning questions as we gear up for launch. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our latest trailers, Inkata episodes, dev diaries, and post-launch content. And of course, be sure to pre-order Ara History Untold on Steam or get ready to dive in on day one with PC Game Pass. With all that said, let's jump back into the conversation. Our next question comes from Ghost FS, who writes, "In all similar 4X games, even the most established, the most critical part is the end game, often unchallenging as the winner is already defined with too long and too repetitive turns. With the map transformed into an unreadable mess, what are your ideas to better streamline the endgame and ensure the game remains challenging until the end?"
When we first started working on Ara with Oxide, this was something that they brought up to us right away, was that they didn't want this game to be like so many other 4X games, like so many games in the genre, and have that kind of tedious, just sort of clicking and turn, waiting to win. And the way that they've attacked that and the way that they've approached that is through this open-ended victory system of prestige. Nations can be playing a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different strategies. They can get ahead earlier, fall behind in the middle, and then catch up at the end. Because you're not on one set specific path to victory, one specific path that you're building up to, and you're either on track or off track to accomplish that, because you're able to build this prestige over time, you have these opportunities for awesome comebacks. You have these opportunities for pivoting your strategy. The other kind of systems that they involve things like, for example, consolidation of resourcing. So in the early game, you might be individually deciding how to set up your economy for things like, I'm going to have this bakery be baking bread for this thing to be crafting to try to feed this city or this of my first village. Whereas by the time you're into the third act, you're making decisions at scale for a massive economy that's already been built and is forming and is running, and it's more like, okay, we're overwhelming here, we have too much of this being produced but not enough of that, and so you're tuning the dials of the nation as opposed to trying to build the machine. And so it ends up becoming a very different type of gameplay that is not as it doesn't have that same kind of I'm doing the exact same thing as I was 300 turns ago, just 10 times as much of it. I'm doing something slightly different. I'm exploring new systems. I'm exploring power and how that affects things, and I'm maximizing quality of life in different ways. The other thing I would say is the culling system, the system by which within the act structure, the game removes players that are at the very bottom of the stack. Now you can turn that off for human players. You can have human players play all the way to the end in single player, multiplayer, whatever you want to do there. But every act, what will happen is the players that are at the most forgettable ranking of the prestige are kind of lost to time. And so, for example, in an 8-player game on a small map, in Act 1, you'll have 8 players all vying for territory. In Act 2, there will only be 6 players vying for territory, or 6 nations. And those 6 nations will have a chance to kind of explore and grab territory from the places that have been lost to time. And then by the time you reach the third act, the bottom 2 of that set is culled by default, and then you end up with just 4 players, like the superpowers left. And they're all vying for control of the map as well. And so that consolidation of resourcing and that opening of the map and that adjusting of scale really helps reduce that kind of, again, that tedium of just clicking through and saying I've already won or I've already lost. I don't even know why I'm still playing. And so one of the things the first thing they said to us was, we really want this to be a game that people want to finish and then play again. We don't want them to just constantly start games and enjoy the first 100 turns and then quit.
All right, next, we had a question from Bad Jam, who wrote, very importantly, is the map in this game spherical or cylindrical?
We examined this a lot throughout the course of development and tested a number of different things. For gameplay reasons and for making the game as enjoyable and as clear as possible, the maps are more cylindrical in nature. You'll see that the way that the world is shaped is such that there's a kind of an east-west seam or a world where it wraps around east-west, but north and south are kind of impassable into sort of an Arctic tundra type region, Arctic and Antarctic regions. And so It is east-west passable in that way. It is cylindrical for gameplay regions, but there's no reason to believe that in the far future, as we continue to support the game over time and as the team at Oxide continues to explore options, if that's something people are really excited and interested in, could be something we could explore.
Okay, apologies for this next one, as I might get the name wrong. We had a question from Nega Ode Scurry Dow Josh Adenir 3932, who asks, is there a forum or a wiki?
There is. Actually, we have a number of forums and places online for people to gather for the game. So right now, we have our Insider Forum. So if you sign up to be an insider within the game, you have access to this special set of forums on the Ara History Untold website, where you can talk to people who've played in previous technical alphas, provided feedback to the team, even members of what we call our council, which is a group of players who have been playing the build regularly now for years and providing feedback as we've gone, kind of 4X superfans who've been deeply invested in the genre for a long time and have partnered directly with the team. But going forward, we're going to be opening that forum up to everybody who wants to play and everybody who's playing Ara History Untold. It'll be a place where you can report your bugs, you can share screenshots, you can talk about the game. Beyond that, we have a very active Steam discussion forum. So if you're buying the game on Steam and playing it on Steam, you can go to the Steam forums and talk to other players there and have a great time. And then beyond that, we know that there is a subreddit out there where we're posting answers as well and trying to engage with folks there who are playing the game and who are excited about it. And finally, we'll be having a link to a Discord as well, where we know people will be congregating to find multiplayer games to play and that kind of thing as well. And so we're trying to make sure there's plenty of spaces that if there's somewhere you like to go or prefer to go to talk about these kinds of games or to engage with people in the community, that you'll have a place to do that.
Yeah, so basically you're everywhere.
We try.
All right, moving on. We had a multiplayer question from Rakti, who writes, for multiplayer, will there be crossplay between Steam and Game Pass on day one?
Yes, there will be. So within multiplayer, within Ara History Untold, you need a Microsoft account. But once you've signed in with your Microsoft account, that is your kind of identity within the game. And so players, regardless of where they bought the game, whether they're playing PC Game Pass, they bought the game in the Windows Store, they bought it on Steam, can play multiplayer together and have a great time playing and get involved in games, create their own lobbies, create their own hosted games, private games, public games, full access across the board there. But so it just requires that you have a Microsoft account that you sign in, and that becomes kind of, again, that's your persona as far as the game is concerned for multiplayer.
Okay, next up, we had a question from Flak Magnets in our Insider Forum, who writes, there are many ways in the game to gain prestige, but is there a way for a nation to lose prestige once it got it? Such as a negative income or losing some things for when things go wrong or bad. It could make the race to the top prestige holder rather interesting and more dynamic, especially if one nation had a large lead heading towards a late game. It could give hope to someone in second, third, or fourth place.
No, it's a great concept. And what I will say is that over the course of development, the team at Oxide looked at ways of creating a number of systems for both gaining prestige, losing prestige, betting prestige, bidding prestige. And at the end of the day, what they determined was that in general, it is kind of more fun to gain prestige and to gain attention and gain fame over time. But there are a number of ways in which there are in the later game big opportunities to get large amounts of prestige, act goals that can give you a new edge or a new opportunity to try to catch up without it kind of unbalancing things or being unfair for the players who stayed ahead the whole for the rest of the game. Beyond that, though, there are still some systems in the game that can cost you prestige. Declaring wars has a small prestige cost depending on what type of war it is, what your casus belli is, as in, is this a war of just pure aggression or expansion, or are you declaring war of retaliation? So depending on how that goes, you'll be sort of betting your prestige on that by spending prestige to go into the war, and then earning prestige out and winning more prestige if you are then successful in the war or accomplish great feats of military valor, won battles, or successful strategic goals during the war that allow you things like capturing cities. Beyond that, there are some events in the game that can also cost you prestige depending on your choices. The game has a number of narrative events in the game that are about deciding, answering historical dilemmas that real leaders have gone throughout real history, but alternate versions of them for this alternate world. But every single one of them is based off of some real event that happened in real world history where a leader usually had to make challenging decisions. And in some cases, those can can cost you prestige. Although, like we said, in general, the team realized kind of most of the way through development that people really like to earn prestige and to have the opportunity to grow and expand and to be successful and to drive towards that. And so there was a strong desire to make sure that people didn't feel like they were being punished for choosing how they wanted to play the game. We want people to feel like they can rule the way they want to rule, that it's their fantasy, it's their world. They can be successful under any direction that they choose to go, as long as they're doing it well and in a strategically, viable and intelligent way.
And finally, we had a question from Daryl999 in our forums who asked, title, what does Ara mean? I'm curious why the developers chose the title to title their game Ara. They could have given it any name, and I'm totally fine with it, but is it a name of a fictional world, or is there any certain meaning behind the word?
Yes. Would a rose by any other name still play as fun? Honestly, Ara was a name that was a lot of years in the making as well. The team worked very hard for a long time to come up with a wide variety of names that we could for the game. And Oxide ended up moving in with Xbox on Ara as kind of a recognition that Ara is a word that has meaning across a huge number of languages across the world, across the entirety of the globe, every continent. In Armenian, it means king. In Latin, it means altar. For millennia, it's just been kind of a collection of letters, of syllables that people have ascribed a lot of different meaning to. But beyond just the name Ara, there was this one specific point of inspiration that I know really kind of lit up the team when they heard about it, which was there is this creation myth from the island of Borneo, where there are these two great birds that actually created, the earth and the sky, and they were called Ara and Erik. And the team was really inspired by the idea of creating a world, creating a new world, a new place for humankind to live, and that being Ara, being part of that creation. And so that was definitely one of the key inspiration points that I remember during the naming process. The part of the name that I think people like to sleep on, though, is the History Untold part. That is the part that I think, personally, to me at least, really speaks to what the heart of this game is. History Untold is it's about the world's history, about a history of a people, a leader from the beginning of, the first agrarian societies all the way up to the technological singularity that's never been told before, that's never been discovered because it's on a planet that never existed or under a set of circumstances with different cultures or different peoples that never had a chance to interact or interface in the real world. And so those chances to write your own histories, to write those untold stories and kind of create them, I think really does speak to the heart of what the game is. And so when that kind of all comes together as Ara History Untold, I think we all just kind of looked at that and we're like, yep, this is it. This is the game. And we're just really excited people get a chance to experience those stories here soon.
Thank you for joining us, Matt. Anything you'd like to say to the fans before you go?
Thank you so much, Zach, for having me. It's been, again, a real honor and a privilege to get to work on this game, to get to partner with a team like Oxide, and to get to have spent the last several years, especially working directly with the community behind this game and interacting with them and iterating on the game's features with them based off of their feedback and thoughts. And so we could not be more excited for the game's release here on September 24th. We hope you'll play. We hope you'll have an amazing time. We hope you'll tune in because we're going to continue to share stories and more information about our continuing plans for post-launch as well going forward. But again, just thank you so much for taking the time and being interested in playing this game. And I can't wait for us to get a chance to share it with you all here in just a short few days.
A huge thanks to Matt Turnbull for taking the time to answer all of your questions. And of course, thank you to everyone who stuck around to watch. We're so excited to have you on this journey with us as we approach launch day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you're always up to date with our latest content. Follow us on the social platforms of your choice. And finally, don't forget to pre-order Ara History Untold on Steam before it launches on September 24th, 2024. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.